Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer Podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me tonight is Joe because our buddy Jason decided to take a late year vacation. So, Jason, have fun, and we simultaneously hate you at the same time for going on vacation without us. How you doing, Joe?
Hanging in there, buddy. Hanging in there. It's been a rough couple of days here.
Yeah, Cub
The
Nation
sports
has
side
not
of
been
things.
happy. Yeah, Cub Nation has been happy. Notre Dame Nation hasn't been happy. Yeah, it's been a rough go for you, man. Uh, well, at least the Bears won, right?
Yeah, at least the Bears won in a mess of a sloppy game.
Well, I mean, I feel like that describes every Bears game that's been played in the last long time. So,
Yeah,
so,
this one just happened to be played in the middle of a rainstorm, so the field was a mudslide, and there's all sorts of footage of QB1 Justin Fields doing a slip and slide celebration.
that reminds me of back in Little League when it would rain, like just absolutely pour, but we needed to get one more inning in to make the game official. So we would all sit in our cars for like 40 minutes, wait for this damn thing to stop. And then upon completion of the game, every kid runs down the third base, belly flop slides into home, and come home covered in mud. That our poor parents had to wash out because we probably had a game within the next day or two. So, mom, dad, sorry about that. Well, no, I'm really not, but hey, there's nothing like having a little fun as a kid. So, Joe, what are you drinking tonight, bud?
I'm back on the Longboard Island Lager here from Kona Brewing.
Nice.
I'd rather be on a beach than or somewhere else than
Yeah,
recapping what's going on. So
I 100% understand that. I do not blame you one bit for that. For me tonight, to celebrate Flogging Molly putting out their newest anthem earlier this week, I'm drinking a Guinness, of course, not out of the can, but out of a damn glass where it belongs. And Jason messaged in. He is drinking a shoot. Where is it? Oh, there it is. A My Time from Kona Brewing. He said it's okay, a little watery, but good notes of pineapple, orange, and lime, modeled after the cocktail, of course. So, Jason, enjoy the drinks. Keep rubbing in the fact that you are near enough to a cookout that you can have it for lunch every damn day. I'm not even slightly. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm quite jealous of that. Enjoy. All right, Joe. So let's move into this. Looking at the home run chases, Pujols just keeps rolling, man. 2 home runs last week, 696 and 697 all time. He is now sole possession of fourth place all time. See you later, Aroyd. No love lost there. 696 came on Saturday versus the Pirates against JT Brubaker. That was a 418-foot shot into the left field bleachers at PNC. And then 697 came on Sunday, and that was a part of a ninth inning rally, and that was off of Chase DeYoung. And DeYoung actually, up until that point, had been lights out for quite some time. So Pujols getting to him was very, very well done by Albert. So congratulations to Pujols. Keep him coming, man. 3 more to 700. Please get there. Please get there. And then Aaron Judge, a little bit quiet last week. He hit number 55 last Wednesday. That was a 374-foot shot against the Twins. That went to the left field bleachers at Yankee Stadium off of Louis Varland. 4th home run in 4 days, the second time in his career he's ever done that. He is now the all-time Yankee right-handed hitter single-season home run leader. He passed also A-Rod for that. And Joe, that was one of the worst pitches I have ever seen thrown to a major league pitch or a major league hitter. You can't hang a slider and leave it middle to anybody, let alone Aaron Judge. And the only reason that only went 374 feet is because he probably was doing his best not to pull it foul when his eyes lit up at how juicy and meaty that pitch was to hit.
yeah, no question, man. You can't mess up that badly on a pitch to Mr. Judge. That's for sure.
All rise. And then the one other home run milestone we were tracking down the Atlantic League, Courtney Hawkins He did not have any home runs last week, so he remains at 44. Remember, he's trying to chase down the single season record of 48. And if I'm remembering right, this is the last week of the regular season for the Atlantic League. So if he's going to chase it down, he needs to get in gear. All right, let's roll into some rule changes that the MLB announced for next year. I've got some very, very mixed feelings on these, and I'm sure a lot of people will as well. So let's just jump into this. The biggest change of all is the pitch clock. We knew this is for years that this would be coming, but now it's finally officially official. It's here. So there's now going to be a 30-second timer in between batters. In between pitches, a 15-second timer when the bases are empty, a 20-second timer with runners on base. In the minors, when they were testing this pitch clock, it reduced the average time of games by about 26 minutes. So that is a pretty significant chunk of time to decrease games time by. And then the rule also introduces a limit on the number of throws to first base or any other base. And the steal attempts per game have increased from 2.23 to 2.83 from 2019 to 2022. And the success rate took a pretty good jump from 68% to 77%. So that's pretty substantial right there. So the pitcher must begin their motion to deliver the pitch before the expiration of the pitch time. Pitchers who violate the timer will be charged with an automatic ball. Batters who violate are charged with an automatic strike. And what that means is they must be in the box and alert to the pitcher by the 8-second mark. When there's runners on base, the timer will reset if the pitcher attempts to pick off or steps off the rubber. They're limited to 2 disengagements, and that can be either a pickoff attempt or a step off. So you don't have it's not an unlimited number of those. And that's for each plate appearance. And that limit is reset if the runner or runners advance during the plate appearance. If a third pickoff attempt is made, the runner will automatically advance 1 base if the pickoff attempt is not successful. So if on the third attempt, if you throw him out, that's it. You're good. You're good. Nothing happens. But if they're safe on that third attempt, they are going to they're going to get an automatic advancement to the next base. Austin, don't worry, bud. We will talk about playoffs and all that coming up. And I am, as I said to Jim earlier on the Huddle Up page, I'm pulling hard for the Orioles, but we'll get to the playoff push in a little bit. Okay. Mound visits, injury timeouts, offensive team timeouts will not count as a disengagement. Odd rule that they added as well. If you've used up all 5 of your allotted mound visits before the 9th inning, you'll get an extra mound visit in the 9th inning, so you can get 6. I wonder if that's actually going to slow things down, as teams may potentially try to use up the 5 before that to get the extra. I don't know if there's a big advantage, disadvantage to that. That's going to be more of a playoff thing where I think we'll see that. And then umpires may provide extra time if warranted by special circumstances, like if the catcher was on base, got thrown out or something like that, needs a little extra time to get his gear on. They'll give him a little they're allowed to give him a little extra time for that. Understandable. You don't want those guys rushing to get all that stuff on, not have something on right, and get pelted with a foul ball and get hurt, because that's the exact opposite of what another rule is trying to do that we'll get to later, which is player safety. So, Joe, what do you think about about this wonderful pitch clock? There's been rumors for years that's been coming. The Barnstormers have been using it for years. We've got to observe it there. I saw them use it the Senators game earlier this year. I actually saw an automatic ball get called and an automatic strike. So I've seen the rule applied both ways. What are your thoughts on the pitch clock?
I'm not much of a fan of it, but they think it's going to speed up the game. Maybe it's going to, make it a quicker, more fun fan package, I guess. The steals going up, that's just going to go higher, because as soon as the guy throws over twice, he's going to go. So it's going to change that part of the game quite a bit. So I think, is it good to speed up the game? Sure. But if every pitcher just pitched like Mark Burley and Dylan Cease, the game would be over in 2 hours anyhow.
Or Greg Maddux.
So it's like, do we need to put a clock in place, or do we just, train the guys to kind of go, look, you get 3 in between innings, 4 in between innings, and that's it.
See, here's where I think they should look at trying to save some time is cut back on how long some of these damn commercial breaks are, or do more. Sometimes the Braves, you see them on Bally Sports South, although granted I see it on the MLB app, but they do that like picture in picture quick commercial break, like as the new pitchers coming in, they'll throw up like 1 or 2 ads in the PIP and then go right back to the coverage.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm okay with that because while the pitcher's warming up, I'd rather not cut away, cut back. That's extra time gone, but they can still get the ad in there so they can still get the ad revenue because, of course, the teams need that. I'm not taking away the fact that the teams need that money. You only get so much from ticket sales, concessions, and all that. So,
Right.
I'm
Find
not
ways.
taking that away.
I agree with you. I think you can find ways to make up that time, commercials being one of them. I see it all the time with Marquee with the Cubs. It's it's a shorter commercial break, but you're still getting the gist of what you need to see and what they paid their money for. And maybe you do more, like they do on radio baseball games where it's like, they a guy makes a great catch and it's, well, this catch is sponsored by whoever, and
Yeah.
you get your ad revenue that way. So, I think that's the way they could solve that problem, without speeding up the athletes. I mean, if there's anything we've seen this year, speeding up the athletes did not help a lot of these guys, with the short spring training, with everything else that they've done. It's not helping the players clearly, as we've seen the injuries pile up. So.
And one other thought I had, and I am glad that MLB did address it with this rule. Some of these delays are because of the damn batters. Think about, let's look at a classic example. Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter, after every pitch, step out, adjust, this, that, adjust this, adjust that, get back in. Derek Jeter was a damn commercial break by himself. And he is the far extreme example, I understand. But there are a lot of batters that take a lot of time, as much time as they can in between pitches, because they know it gets under the pitcher's skin. Because they're just trying.
And I think that's they almost could have done that rule by itself, and that would have been enough to, improve the speed of the game. Not having every pitch you can step out of the box. It's
and
one thing if you get a foot out, look down the baseline, get your coach's signal, and get back in. But you don't have to step out, readjust your batting gloves, readjust your jersey, readjust your helmet, and step back in. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Savannah Bananas, freaking awesome minor league team to see if you can ever get tickets. I think they're sold out for the next 3 years. They play a variety of baseball called banana ball. And one of the rules of banana ball is the batter is not allowed to step out of the box. If they step out of the box, they are assessed an automatic strike. That would probably do more than a pitch clock. I don't
know if we need to go that drastic, but I do think, just limiting how much time they can spend out of the box, and that would really help, as opposed to speeding up pitchers who, you want to see dominate. And now if they're changing 20 years worth of mechanics, well, is that going to be good or bad?
2 notes on that. One, there are some pitchers who need to get their ass in gear. Kenley Jansen in particular, he takes an average of 24 seconds in between pitches, by far the most in the majors. Dude needs a cattle prod on his ass constantly. I'd be okay with that. Maybe he'd stop overthinking and allowing 2 home runs in the 9th inning to the frickin' Mariners. But I'll talk about that later. Here's the thing. A lot of the guys coming up now have played with a pitch clock in the minor leagues. So it's only really going to affect the older guys. And these guys are the ones that are going to be retiring first because they're older. So I'm not really completely sold on the argument that it's going to screw up the pitchers too much. I kind of hope they don't use it in the playoffs, though, because that's the time where I want to see pitchers and batters taking their time. But regular season, yeah, it is what it is. We knew it was coming. We may not love it, but uh, let's here's the thing. I think there's going to be a lot of complaining about it in spring training. I think there's going to be a lot of complaining about it April, May, and then once people get used to it, it's just going to be a thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do agree with your point too about the minors. I think that's one of the things that I don't know if it was around when Cease was in the minors, but he seems like he's on a schedule every time he's on the mound. So,
Yeah.
um,
Another guy who really hates when batters delay, Bumgarner.
yeah,
And Bumgarner will put one under your chin if you delay too many times.
yeah,
Maybe
for
that's
sure.
what we need. We need more pitchers like that, or like get your ass in the box, or I'm going to put your ass on the ground. You know,
Maybe.
old school baseball, a little bit of old and new mixed up. All right, so Joe, what about defensive shifts?
Yeah, so they're gonna the defensive team must have 4 players in the infield, and there must be 2 on either side of second base. That's the biggest shift on this. It's intended to increase batting average on balls in play. It's if you allow the infield to better showcase their athleticism and restore some more traditional outcomes on batted balls. That's their big focus with this. The infielders must be within the outer boundary of the infield, so right on the edge of the grass. To me, I think that could be shifted a little bit. If they're a few steps behind the grass, I don't think it's a big deal. But that's the way the rule is there. Um, you can't switch sides as an infielder, so you can't go from short and play second. You can't move around there. Um, to put the best defender on whatever side you want to put them on. Um, and if they're not aligned properly at the time of pitch, the offense can choose an automatic ball or the result of a play. Similar to football penalties where you can either take the penalty or if you get a first down, no, I'll take the first down. I don't care. That kind of scenario with that. It doesn't preclude a team from positioning an outfielder in the infield or in the shallow outfield grass. It just prohibits you from going to 4 outfielders and prohibits the infielders from bunching up on one side. So, I mean, it does allow that caveat, which I guess could work for some teams. Um, so, Andrew, what's your thoughts on that? I think it's, is it going to increase offense? Yeah, it's going to. Some of these guys who are older who have stuck it out at second because they don't have to be as athletic, it's helped to extend their career. Um, you know, I don't know about you, but if I'm watching a ball game, I'd rather see more Ozzie Smith style plays in the infield than, oh, here's another ground ball because they bunched up on him and he can't go the other way with it.
I've got two thoughts. One, I agree with you. I want to see more athletic play in the infielders. But number two, I want to see hitters get back to hitting the damn ball where it's pitched. Right now, we are rewarding hitters that are purely powering up and trying to pull home runs with every hit. And it's lazy. That's why, baseball wants to point to the shift as to why averages are down league wide. And sure, that's part of it. I'm not going to take that away. The shift absolutely does rob some. I mean, remember when Freddie Freeman last year started his April and May batting in the low 200s because of it? He was hitting the ball hard, but it was, magically finding fielders' gloves when normally they wouldn't. And that included a lot of outfield hits too, not just the shift. But Freddie evened out over the rest of the season and still batted around 300 last year. So it's not like it didn't counterbalance the other way. Here's the thing. Why can't hitter, when we were learning how to hit, we were told to hit the ball where the pitch is. If it's down and away, slap it the other way. If it's in tight, give it a pull. I don't like the fact that we're just going to keep rewarding the hitters who are refusing to learn how to hit. I understand we're trying to help the guys that are legitimately getting screwed because they put a good charge on the ball and it gets caught by that third guy sitting 30 feet out in the outfield. Like sometimes against a lefty on a 2-strike count, Atlanta actually, instead of moving Dansby Swanson over, they actually move Austin Riley all the way over into the shallow outfield. The Padres do the same thing with Manny Machado. And, we're going to see that go away. It is what it is. The biggest part of this rule that I actually don't like is that we're not allowed to put the infielders into the shallow outfield. I think that's ridiculous. If you're not going to let them shift, you should be allowed to let the infielders go, 10, 15 feet into the outfield. I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, the infielders taking a risk by playing that far back, they're going to have to make that much harder and quicker of a throw to throw the guy out. So I can see that happening, that, a guy scorches one to the shortstop standing 10 feet in the grass, but they have to make that much longer of a play. It gives the batter more of a chance to run down the line and beat out the throw. So if we're going to
do that for sure. It does give, being able to play back gives the fielder an extra, quarter of a second to gauge the ball too, I think, which is helpful. So I think having that tight restriction is just not helpful.
And you want to see athletic plays. They want to see more of those leaping catches. Well, how often when they're on the dirt is that leaping catch missed by an inch? Whereas if they're 2 feet out in the grass, 5 feet out in the grass, that leaping catch is caught, but they still have to jump for it. So, yeah, that's, I personally, the shift is what it is. Teams have been shifting forever. This isn't a new thing. It's come back more because of analytics. But if you read accounts of early baseball, teams shifted all the time. They knew who the pull hitters were that couldn't slap it the other way, so they would shift on them. This is not a new strategy that's come into play in the last 15, 20 years. It's been around for 100 years. So if we're going to take it away, fine. I don't really agree with it, but fine. But let the infielders move back.
In your opinion, Andrew, is this sort of like a course correct for baseball? I mean, they were so enamored with home runs for years and years, and the fan was so enamored with home runs for years and years. It's almost like a course correct for the guys like us who like small ball, who like athletic infield plays, who like all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely a course correct, 100%. Yep, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. All right, Joe, then what's the last relatively minor rule change that we're going to see?
Yeah, this last change is an increase to the size of the bases. They're going to go from 15 inches to 18 inches square. Home plate is staying as it is. This could increase the stolen base rate. Primarily, they're trying to give players more room to operate and avoid collisions, particularly at first. It could also reduce oversliding a bit because, it's a lot easier to find 18 inches than 15 inches, I guess. It will reduce the distance between first and second and second and third by 4.5 inches. So that's a pretty minor change, I think, or at least a minor difference. My initial thoughts on that are, you're giving them more territory to touch the base and slide out past the guy who's trying to tag them, essentially. And that's one of the reasons they put those gloves in place, is for them to not mess up fingers. And this is going to help some of that probably. But, you're also increasing the amount of bag that a shortstop or a second baseman is going to have to cover on that throw down to second. The amount of space they have to block, which shouldn't really be too much of an impact, I don't think.
Yeah. I feel like of the three rules, this is by far the most minor and irrelevant of the three. To be honest, I understand, especially at first base, because there's a lot of near collisions and collisions that happen every year. My question is, if we're that worried about collisions, why don't we do what softball does and do the double wide bag? So the runner has to go to the inside foul line bag, and the fielder's on the in play side of the bag. I feel like if you really want to make a difference with collision safety, that's a better way to do it than changing the size of the base. But this should help a little bit, I hope.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't. They almost could have left the other bases as is and just
Yeah.
added that breakaway bag on the foul line. Which seeing that firsthand as many years as I have, in athletic training, that's a big difference between, you know, possibly running into the first baseman and making sure that you're safe. I mean, that's
Plus, another advantage of that I actually just thought of, Joe, how often do we see did the guy deliberately try to hit the first baseman to break up the play, or was it a legitimate accident because of a bad throw? Whereas if they're forced to stay on the inside of the foul line the whole way up, there is no chance of that happening and that question being asked, and then forcing the umpire to make a snap judgment call, which may or may not be accurate. And that's probably something that's not reviewable from New York anyway. So, it was a thought I just had now. I feel like if we're trying to avoid collisions, look at what softball does. But really, this is such a minor change. I don't even think this is going to drastically affect the stolen bases much. I know, catchers with the big arms are still going to be able to throw guys. JT Realmuto doesn't care if you gained if you have 4 inches less that you have to run, he's still going to throw you out a very, very high clip at the time. Same with the Contreras brothers. They're the catchers of the cannons are still going to throw guys out. You could make that base 2 feet wide and they're still going to throw guys out. So this is minor.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
All right. So, Joe, overall, do you think, looking at the 3 rules together, do you think they're good rules, bad rules, indifferent? What do you think?
It's a mixed bag of, good intentions, but some of it is kind of stupid. Um, I mean, the bases, I think we talked about that enough. I think putting that breakaway bag, if you will, in foul territory would do more for player safety on the base pass than anything else. I think the shifts are going to make it more fun for guys like us who like watching that kind of baseball. Um, and so that, and then the pitch clock thing is just, I don't think it's necessary. I think controlling the batters would do more to speed up the game.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's move on. And Austin, it's playoff time. So the Dodgers almost became the first team to clinch postseason spot after an 11-2 victory over the Padres on Sunday. And MLB actually initially said, hey, the Dodgers are the first team in. And then they were like, oh, shit. We forgot to include the incredibly unlikely scenario that the Dodgers will lose out, the Padres overtake them, and then a 3-way tie being forced with the Dodgers and the Brewers and the Cardinals. As I said, the chances of that happening are so minuscule, it's not even worth trying to calculate. And I understand MLB, somebody had to have been like, guys, even though it's infinitesimally unlikely, it is still possible that this could happen. Sorry, guys, the Dodgers are in. Dodgers are going to be the 1 seed overall. All right. So, Joe, if the playoffs started today, the seeding in the AL is going to be Astros 1, Yankees 2, Guardians 3, Rays 4, Mariners 5, Blue Jays 6. The Astros will play the winner of the Mariners-Rays series. The Yankees will play the winner of the Blue Jays-Guardians series. In the NL, it would be Dodgers at 1, Mets at 2, Cardinals at 3, Braves at 4, Phillies at 5, Padres at 6. The Dodgers would get the winner of the Braves-Phillies series, and the Mets would get the winner of the Cardinals-Padres series. Now, a reminder of how the series are going to be. Wild card is best of 3. All the games will be at the higher seed stadium. The division series will be best of 5 in the traditional 2-2-1 format. The championship series and the World Series will be best of 7 in the traditional 2-3-2 format. So before we get down to the formats, Joe, this has been driving me nuts ever since they announced this, that they're sticking with a strict bracket format. So the Dodgers may not have the best matchup in the DS because the way they have it set up, they don't want the number 1 seed to have to face a division winner, so they get 4 or 5, but the 6 seed could play the 2 seed instead of the 1 seed, which is how it should be. Why in the hell didn't they just say we're going to reseed after the wild card round to ensure that the number 1 seed gets the best matchup against the 6 seed? That was dumb. To stick to the strict bracket. I don't understand that. How many leagues do reseeding now? And I'm sorry, it doesn't make it. This is stupid. The fact that if I'm the Dodgers, and the fact that I would have to deal with the Braves in round 2 instead of the Padres, that would piss me off to no end. Now, of course, if the Cardinals would beat the Padres, they would have the Braves in round 2 or the Phillies in round 2. Okay, that's the lowest seed left. But if I'm the Dodgers, the Padres upset the Cardinals, and the Braves move on, I'm pissed. I don't want the Braves in the DS, because the Braves pitching in a 5-game series, I'd rather have them in a 7-game series where they're forced to run those arms out longer than a short series, because this year the Braves definitely have a better starting rotation for the playoffs than the Dodgers do. So I just had to get that off my chest. I hate the fact that we're not doing reseeding. It's dumb.
Yeah, it doesn't make too much sense. I agree with you. But, I mean, when we watch the NFL playoffs, we know that the higher seed remains, and that's who goes to different places. That's the way they run it, and it makes sense. But this is Rob Manfred we're talking about, so
Robbie, don't even remind me.
I mean, I will say this: I am glad that they're going to go away from the one and done wild card system.
Yeah, that was a bad idea. Bad idea from the start.
And the best way they could make that work was to expand it to have 3 wild cards. Just so that you don't have too many teams down for too long.
But there's too many teams. I'm sorry. I hate the 12-team field. I didn't even like the 10-team field, to be honest with you. But I really hate the 12-team field. It's too many teams.
Yeah.
I like the exclusivity. I don't like the fact that almost 50% of the teams make the playoffs every year now. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, let's be serious here. The Padres don't belong anywhere near this. They haven't done enough to get there. They've had too much drama off the field. They've made trades for guys that should improve them, but haven't really hit well. I just don't feel like the Padres have done enough to get there, and they're going to get there because of a technicality. And it's similar to what happened last year when NFL expanded to 14, and you had the Steelers playing a game they didn't deserve to be in, and the Eagles playing a game they didn't deserve to be in.
And please let the record note that they got their asses blown out. It was never close in either of those games. And honestly, wild card weekend last year was some of the worst playoff football I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
that was terrible.
More teams does not improve the quality of the competition on the field.
No, it's a greedy money grab, 100%.
It did that in the NFL last year. That the first weekend was god awful football to watch. Yeah. If the Blue Jays somehow sneak in, now the Blue Jays are a good team, but still, I don't know that. At this point, will they have done enough to get there? Yes, but the bigger you make the field, the worse it gets.
It dilutes it. So another thought, Joe, should MLB consider going from the traditional 2-3-2 to a 2-2-1-1-1 format, which is used by the NHL and NBA? And to explain, it'd be 2 games the high seed, 2 games the low seed, then high, low, high, instead of the 2-3-2 format that they use now. Because if you think about it, Joe, if it goes to a 5-game series, the higher seed has less home games than the lower seed does. Whereas in the 2-2-1-1-1, the higher seed will either have more games or equal home games. What do you think about that? I know it's something MLB has never really bandied around. In the NBA, they were at a 2-2-1-1-1 for a long time, and then when it was Lakers Celtics every year, Red Auerbach started complaining because he hated all of the constant cross country travel because it was Celtics Lakers every year. So they wanted the 2-3-2 for that. And in 2013 they voted to go back to the traditional 2-2-1-1-1 because they were like, well, now the Celtics and the Lakers aren't dynasties anymore. There's no need to make a special exception for two teams that rarely meet in playoffs. And hockey has been doing a 2-2-1-1-1 format for as long as I can remember. And they do that across all of their series. For the Stanley Cup is 7 games every series, best of 7 for everything. So what do you think? Do you think baseball should consider a 2-2-1-1-1 format, or are you okay with the 2-3-2 format?
I think I'm okay with the 2-3-2. I think, the NHL playoffs are that 2-2-1-1-1, as you mentioned, and they just seem to drag on forever.
Yeah, you do have to include more travel time. That's very
right,
true.
right, and those playoff rounds just seem to, that whole tournament, the whole Stanley Cup playoff, seems to last almost 2 months. I think it's just like, really, like, I don't, the NCAA tournament is 15 days. not quite, but the NCAA tournament is, what,
It's
3
a lot
weeks?
more teams and fewer time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know. I
3
know what you
weeks.
mean.
Really?
Yeah.
We can't do some of this a little quicker. I like the 2-3-2. I think it puts a lot more emphasis on game 1 and game 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're the, and we're just talking about the 7-game series, I imagine, right? We're not talking about
Yes.
adjustments to anything else.
No,
So
they're not going to adjust the 5.
no,
2-2-1 is fine for the 5.
yeah, I think it puts the emphasis on, the lower seed can go, well, if I can steal one of these first 2, then we can win this thing at home.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the big thought on the 2-3-2, in the 2-3-2, you have so many teams that are winning this thing game 5 and don't get to celebrate at home, or winning at game 6 and not, look at Atlanta last year in a 2-2-1-1-1. Atlanta celebrating back in Truist Park instead of Houston.
yeah,
But
but I
it
mean,
is what it is.
if even if you go to the 2-2-1-1-1, if a team sweeps, then they don't get to celebrate anyhow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a sweep, they wouldn't if it's the higher seed that sweeps. So,
Right, that's what I'm
that's not going to
saying.
change.
So it doesn't necessarily get rid of that problem.
Yeah. But let's face it, none of the leagues want sweeps. They want 7-game series. That's more money. All right. So, Joe, let's take a look at the AL wild card right now. Right now, there's Baltimore is definitely still in the hunt. They're 5.5 games out coming into play today. The White Sox, I would say the White Sox are still in fighting chance. They're at 7 games out. And the only other team I would really say has somewhat of a shot would be the Twins. They're 9 games behind, but it's still early enough in September that deficit can be overcome. But I feel like that's kind of a stretch making up 9 games at this point because we're down to basically 3.5 weeks to play. What do you think? Do you think I know the Orioles have been slumping a little bit and the Blue Jays all of a sudden got hot. Do you think the Orioles have enough in them to get one more run together to push the Blue Jays out of that last spot?
I certainly hope so.
Me too.
But I mean, the key thing you said there is the Orioles were slumping and the Blue Jays got hot, and the Blue Jays got hot against the Orioles. So now you're playing
Double whammy.
from behind to begin with, and you've got to try and beat the team that has probably won the series with you for the season. So even if you do claw back, you're going to be out on a tiebreaker. So you've put yourself in a bad spot. You know, so I mean, I don't know that they'll get there. I think they picked the wrong time to get cold.
Yeah.
And the White Sox, who we'll talk about, have at least kept themselves, they're treading water. They're staying close.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Let me see what I'm pulling it up right now. Baltimore versus Toronto, because it does matter. The head-to-head does matter as the tiebreaker. Actually, for the season right now, Baltimore is 7-6 against Toronto, so they still do hold the tiebreaker against them if it would turn into a tie. So they would take the wild card if that would turn into a tie. So, hey, Oriole fans, hope is not lost yet. 5.5 games, it's a lot, but if you could start playing some consistent baseball and hope that the Blue Jays stumble a little bit, it's definitely not outside of the realm of possibility that they could make a run back towards it. And if I remember right, I believe the Orioles and the Blue Jays play at least one more series. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling that schedule up right now. I know you'd think I'd have that ready. Yeah, they are in Toronto. 16, 17, 18, and I believe that's the last series. Oh no, I'm sorry. And then the last series of the year is at home in Baltimore against the Blue Jays, October 3, 4, and 5. So, there's still 6 games left between those two teams. That is absolutely a deficit that could be made up.
Yeah, and I think too, the White Sox only hope that this is the division. I think, unless everybody else craters in that wild card hunt.
As your mom points out, Joe, the
Yes.
White Sox are only 2.5 games out. And that's definitely a very good point to keep in mind here. I don't know if the White Sox have enough to catch the wild card, but the division, that AL Central division, is so weak that they absolutely have a very good shot of catching Cleveland. And you know what? As long as La Russa's away, and I know we'll get into this a little bit later, as long as La Russa's away, I give that team better than normal odds of catching the Guardians and taking the division.
For sure.
And then looking on the National League side, this is almost wrapped up. Let's face it. It's the number one wild card is going to be either Atlanta or it's going to be New York. It depends on who wins the East. And then Philadelphia is pretty firmly entrenched in that second spot right now. Although Philadelphia needs to focus in and just beat the teams they need to beat and not play down bad competition like they've been known to do in the past, which Jason has pointed out so many times. Frustrating. And then the only other team, San Diego. So San Diego's got the last spot right now. The only other team that's really in contention right now is the Brewers. They're only 2 games back, though. So between the Padres and the Brewers, I could absolutely see that fight going back and forth all the way to the end of the season. I don't think the Padres are going to go into a total nosedive like they did last year. I don't see that happening. San Francisco, I guess technically they're not mathematically eliminated yet, but 9.5 games back out of that last spot. Yeah, same thing as the Twins. I think it's too little, too late for them to catch it, and God knows they're not catching the Dodgers. So, division is out for that. So the team that won 107 games last year is going to become another one of those random blip statistics teams that go from number 1 seed in the league to out of the playoffs next year. I'm pretty confident that that's likely what's going to happen to the Giants. What do you think, Joe? Who's going to take that last spot? Is it going to be San Diego or is it going to be Milwaukee?
Honestly, I thought Milwaukee was further back the way they've been playing. Jeez.
I mean, I get that. I do.
I mean, if you're into it as much as we are, it almost feels like this wild card spot is wrapped up and they're only 2 back.
Yeah.
It feels like they're back 7.
Well, and here's the thing. Milwaukee's strength is their starting pitching. And their starting pitching lately has kind of sucked. But it's slowly starting to turn around and get better. Oh. Sorry, Mr. McGrath, my bad. But like I said, if Milwaukee's starters can come on and pitch like they did most of last year, that might be the edge they need to get ahead of San Diego. And it wouldn't necessarily shock me. Looking at the tiebreaker here, Milwaukee against San Diego. So here's the thing: Milwaukee lost the season series to San Diego 3-4. So Milwaukee is going to need to get ahead of San Diego. They cannot win on a tie. So Milwaukee's best hope is they need to pass San Diego, and they also, for the best luck for them, they really probably want to hope that the Phillies nosedive as well, just to give them a little extra breathing room. But again, is it possible? Absolutely. Is it likely? I really don't think that's very likely to happen.
Yeah,
And
with that season series record, I mean, it feels like it feels like Milwaukee is 5 or 6 back.
Yeah.
With that in mind. So yeah, to me the NL seems pretty well wrapped up. It's just a matter of final position, and the AL is just about wrapped up.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to win the NL East, Joe? Because I have a feeling the rest of the way in September, I feel like every other series we could see a new team atop the NL East. I mean, the Braves finally, for the first time all year, briefly took hold of the NL East before the Mets took it back the next day. The Mets social media team had a lot of fun a lot of good times poking fun at Atlanta for their one-day division leaders. Honestly, I thought that was pretty funny, and the way the Mets have been playing lately, their fans needed a good laugh.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the way the Mets have been playing. The Cubs are up 5-1 here in the 6th.
Go Cubbies. Go freaking Cubbies.
I think his first name is Trevor. Trevor May is in the 6th inning, so Bassett probably went 5.
Oh man, boy, I would
you cannot lose these games against teams like the Cubs, and technically, as you said, not mathematically eliminated. The Cubs' magic number is 4 still. They're not eliminated yet.
Somehow or another, and we're not 100% sure how, but that's the beauty of mathematics, anything can happen at any point. Here, I'm just pulling up the box score quick. No, oh man, the Cubs killed Bassett early. 3 2/3, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and 2 home runs allowed. Those home runs were hit by Ortega had a solo shot, and McKinstry had a 2-run shot. Whew, that's rough. That's really rough. And kind of funny too, not gonna lie.
Social media is probably fired up right now.
You know what? That's one of my favorite things is to watch Met social media just melt down. Their fan base has absolutely no faith in that team whatsoever. And you know what? To be fair, they've melted down so many times in the past. I can't say I blame them for melting down every time they lose a damn game. And to be fair, the Braves have been on an incredibly torrid pace in the second half. Since the second half started, they are the best team in baseball. If they would have gotten their stuff together earlier in the year, this race would be over already. Whether the Mets fans like to admit it or not, if the Braves hadn't played so bad in April and May, this race would be over and the Braves and the Dodgers would be duking it out for the top spot. So I understand where they're coming from. All right, Joe, how about some Release the Good? What do you got for us this week?
Well, so, I mean, one of these is I'm self-deprecating. I'm a Cub fan. I'm used to it. So in self-deprecating fashion, one of these Release the Goods is congratulations to the Sun Belt Conference, who in college football this weekend made $4.173 million to beat 3 big team schools, Notre Dame being one, losing to Marshall, Texas A&M losing to Appalachian State, and Nebraska losing to Georgia Southern, henceforth causing Scott Frost his job. So Release the Good for the Sun Belt Conference. Way to, that's quite a gamble. That's quite a winning on a gamble there. But if you're a football conference, holy shnikes.
Man, that Marshall Notre Dame day. Was that 1.5?
Yeah, I mean the 1.5 went to Appalachian State from Texas A&M. The 1.423 went to Georgia Southern, and Notre Dame paid 1.25 to Marshall to lose. So I'm not happy about that result, obviously, but good on the Sun Belt Conference for sneaking some money from us this weekend. But in happier release the good, Carlos Alcaraz, 19-year-old, wins the U.S. Open, becomes the youngest world number one in men's tennis history this weekend.
Wow.
So he wins the final match 6-4, 2-6, 7-6, 6-3. 4 sets in Flushing Meadow in Queens. Becomes the youngest man to lead the American tennis, the professional tennis rankings. So it's something he dreamed of as a kid. He's the youngest man to win a major since Rafa Nadal in 2005, who was 19 at that time as well. That was the French Open. And he's the youngest at the U.S. Open since 19-year-old Pete Sampras in 1990.
Petey.
So, heck of a run for him through the tournament. Again, youngest to reach number one since the rankings were introduced in 1973, at 19 years and 130 days. On his way to the Grand Slam title here at the U.S. Open, 3 consecutive 5-setters to reach the title match. And no one had done that in 30 years. He spent a total of 23 hours and 40 minutes on the court, the most by any Mets player during any one major tournament since the start of 2000. He went.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's really great stuff from him. He dropped the second set in the final and faced a pair of set points while down 6-5 in that third set. Came back to get that and then won it in the fourth set. Had a heck of a run here. He won 34 of 45 points when he went to the net on Sunday.
Wow.
He delivered,
wow.
14 aces at up to 128 mile an hour on Sunday and converted 3 of 11 break points.
That's good numbers. Wow. Impressive.
So hat tip to him. Congratulations on your success. Of note, obviously, there were a few competitors missing from the U.S. Open who may have been in the way of that, but way to take advantage of an opportunity, and congratulations to you. Hat tip to you, number one in tennis.
Absolutely. And you know what? Who cares if they're not there? He still had to win. So he got it done. Something that Jason's pointed out, the Phillies tend to not do so often. Sorry, Jason, that was a cheap shot. Anyway, so next week when Jason's back, we will hold our East Division all-time team drafts. That will be exciting. The deepest field by far of the 3 divisions, both on both conference sides. And as a reminder, we cannot all draft rosters full of Yankees. So you will see us picking players from every team in both conferences. So that's going to be a lot of fun next week to finally get that knocked out, since somebody, Jason, couldn't get it done last week and then decided he had to go on vacation this week and eat cookout already twice, you bastard. All right, Joe. So how about everybody's favorite manager to bash on this show, Tony La Russa? So what's going on with him?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago now, I think, it was announced and the players, I think, found out online that La Russa was taking a break, if you will, going to seek medical treatment. And so, he went to Arizona to where most of his regular doctors have been the last few years, to get things checked out. There wasn't a whole lot of specificity to that in the first few days of this. What we know now is that was a pacemaker was put in for him. The return to the club is uncertain at this point. If I'm, Miguel Cairo, I'd tell him to stay away. If I'm Jerry Reinsdorf and using my head the last 2 weeks, I'd tell him to stay away too. But he won't. So he was cleared to travel this past weekend. They were in Oakland, or was it last? Yeah, this past weekend.
Yeah.
Um, in Oakland, La Russa did manage in Oakland, so I mean that's the connection there. Um, Dave Stewart had his A's number 34 retired, so he was able to be on hand for that. Um, La Russa said, health's nothing to mess with, um, and Arizona's been his place for a physician since the 90s. It's where he's had all his physicals and everything else. Now it's just a question of him being up to the challenge of being back in the dugout. Which again, in a perfect world, when you're 7-3 in your last 10 right now, and you're within a stone's throw of the division, um, you know, I don't know if it's a smart idea to bring him back, but we'll see what they decide to do. Miguel Cairo's been great in the dugout in his absence. Again, has the White Sox within the 2.5. So
Yeah, they need to keep him away. Let Miguel Cairo run the team. He's doing just fine. And even if they nosedive, I'm still going to blame La Russa, even if he's not there. And La Russa's still been involved. One of the articles I read, he and Cairo still talk on the phone at least twice a day. They talk strategy, they talk matchups, the whole 9 yards. So it's not like La Russa's completely absent. He's just not directly there making the in-game calls. So, and let's be honest, at this point in his career, he's probably better as a consultant than he is as the guy running a team anyway. But Joe, I think you're right. I don't think Jerry's going to use his head because, as we've noticed, owners named Jerry don't ever use their head. It doesn't matter what sport it is. So I fully expect La Russa, he will be back at some point. Is probably 30 seconds after Reinsdorf gets the fax from Tony saying that he has been medically cleared to return to the club.
yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think he's still involved. It's just a different figurehead voice in the dugout. Leading the charge here, and the players have shown that that they're fine with it. They're gonna continue to do what they need to do, and hopefully they can pull something together here.
Yeah. But let's hope for the sake of the White Sox that he stays away. All right. So yesterday, Joe, was 9/11. It was the 21st anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. Not as many tributes as there were last year, obviously, for the 20th when we had the replay of the Subway Series with the Yankees and the Mets. But there were MLB-wide, there were moments of silence, remembrances, tributes across all ballparks. They had a special patch on all of the caps, although for some reason, Jesus Luzardo's pitcher of the Marlins, his was missing. I don't know if it fell off or if the training staff just forgot to put it on there. Who knows? In the Rangers Blue Jays game, George Bush took part in the first ball ceremony. With the Yankees, Aaron Judge wore special custom cleats. They were pretty cool. If you haven't seen them yet, pull up pictures online. They look pretty awesome. And they also wore their traditional NYPD first responder caps, and the Mets wore their traditional NYFD responder caps as well. So it was a touch. As always, it's a touching day. It's a day that I will never forget where I was. Standing in line, waiting for lunch at the middle school before being summoned back to Mr. Hunsinger's room to watch the live footage on TV of everything as it was happening before Warwick released us early. That's one of those events that even if I get dementia, I will remember everything about that day, I'm sure. All right. So looking down on the farm, Jason did send us the hitter and pitcher for the week. So, Joe, why don't you take down on the farm for us?
Sure. The hitter for down on the farm for Jason this week, Khalil Watson of the Jupiter Hammerheads, single A affiliate of the Marlins. He's their top prospect. He hit 304 this week, 3 triples, a homer, and 4 RBIs. So getting it done. The one thing I love about minor league teams is the nicknames are amazing. And it gets better. So the pitcher for this, Cody Lawlerson, of the Wichita Wind Surge, the Double-A affiliate of the Twins. 2 games started 1-0 with a 0 ERA. He went 11 innings and 13 strikeouts this week. The opponent batting average in this game was 0.83, 3 hits total on the week. I expect we'll see him in a year or so. He's pitching like that. Good Lord.
That. I don't care what level of baseball you're at. That's insane. And it's funny. I actually knew about the Wichita Wind Surge from playing the show. One of my players was actually traded. It was my third baseman. For some idiotic reason, even though the Braves drafted him, they traded him to the Twins. No, I'm sorry, they traded him to the Royals, and the Royals AA is in the same league as the Wichita Wind Surge. So, I actually knew about that name, but you're right. That might be the best part about minor league baseball is some of these team names. I mean, you get some unoriginal ones like Fightin' Phils and Reading. Come on, that's nothing. I like the Durham Bulls, Gwinnett Stripers, the Lexington Legends in the Atlantic League. First of all, they're actually a really good team, so they're backing up their name. So mad props to that. But minor league teams, they get the levity to just have a little bit of fun with it. And the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, that one game where they were the Lehigh Valley Scrapple. I mean, that was just absolutely brilliant. So that was great weeks for those two guys. But Joe, you're not kidding. Lawyerson, he's going to be up in the relatively near future. I don't think it's going to be very long for him. And then Zac Gallen, and we unfortunately were part of this streak because he had a start against us, although I think the Diamondbacks lost that start because once he went out, we destroyed their bullpen. His scoreless inning streak was finally ended, 44 1/3 innings. He broke the club record, which was recorded previously by Brandon Webb at 42 1/3 innings back in 2007. Let's remember the MLB record is Orel Hershiser at 59 innings back in 1988, a great year because I was born that year. And the last run that Gallen had allowed before that one was August 2nd at Cleveland. So it has been quite a while. So congratulations to Zac Gallen for running that streak as long as he did. That's very, very, very impressive. And he's a big reason why, although the Diamondbacks are not going to do anything this year, he is a very big reason why that is a team on the rise and that we will see in the future doing good things, I think, probably within the next year or two as they bring more of that good minor league talent up. Plus, let's face it, Joe and I are suckers for good pitching. All right, man, let's move on. So Atlanta, it was a week over 500. It was a somewhat frustrating week. They opened up by sweeping Oakland 10-9 and 7-3. That first game, Kyle Wright was on the mound, and I did not think it was going to be a very high-scoring game. But that was just one of those games where the pitching couldn't keep the ball in the ballpark no matter how hard they tried. There were a bunch of home runs given up by both teams. And it was Matt Olson's return to Oakland. And while he didn't play super well overall, he did shoot one gigantic monster shot out to the right center bleachers, which I wholeheartedly loved, and love that he was able to go back to his old team and do that against them. And then they dropped 2 of 3 against the Mariners. They took game 1 6-4. They dropped games 2 and 3, 3-1 and 8-7. That Sunday loss, that was rough, man. They trailed 6-2 going into the ninth. They scored 5 to take the lead, and then Kenley Jansen gave up 2 solo shots in the bottom of the ninth, one of which was with 2 outs, and that lost the game. And that wasted 2 home run effort from Michael Harris II. So that was the one I was most upset about losing. Saturday, I'm not surprised that was low scoring. That was Max Fried versus George Kirby. And if it would have been 3-1 Braves, I would not have been surprised at all because, let's face it, you knew neither of those guys were going to give up a ton of runs. So it was going to be that's basically a coin toss when you have 2 phenomenal pitchers going, and the hitters are going to get decimated. 2 thoughts on hitters. Matt Olson has been stone cold in September. He needs to turn it on. His slash line's pretty bad. 100, 270, 200, 3 for 30, 6 runs scored, a homer, 4 RBIs, 6 walks, 9 strikeouts. Thankfully, Michael Harris II has been on fire. 429, 429, 914 line through September, 15 for 35, 10 runs scored, 2 doubles, 5 homers, 11 RBIs. We're only halfway through the month, so that's a phenomenal line so far. And then just looking at the other potential Rookie of the Year candidate, we have Spencer Strider. Joe, this is the season count: 10-4, 269 ERA, 0.97 WHIP, 0.175 batting average against, 183 strikeouts, 41 walks, and 120 and 2/3 innings. And remember, he's only had 18 starts. He had a bunch of games where he was playing long relief out of the bullpen before they moved him into the rotation. He has allowed only 76 hits, 36 earned runs, 6 home runs, which that's the 6 home runs I think is particularly impressive because power pitchers, if their accuracy is off, they tend to get smashed because you don't have to put as much energy into the swing to send it flying. So, just pointing it out there, co-rookies of the year right there in those two guys. Because I think I really think either they're going to steal votes and somebody's going to sneak in, or the voters are going to be smart and just say, you know what, they've both earned it. Let's give it to both of them. Just my personal opinion, though.
Yeah, I mean, the season that Strider's having, does that give him any consideration for the Cy Young?
I don't think so. Not enough innings. He only had, like I said, he's only thrown 120 and 2/3 at this point. Alcantara's either at 200 or getting really close to 200. If he puts up numbers like this projected over a full season next year, absolutely no questions asked. Now, I don't know, is he going to have a potential sophomore slump next year? Absolutely. He's a young guy. He's never pitched this many innings in a season at any level of baseball. So that's definitely going to be a factor that's going to get looked at next year. I mean, he hasn't looked like he's getting ready to run out of gas. I'm sure the Braves are probably going to try and give him some easier games down the stretch if they can, to keep him out of the high leverage situation. So he's, they can use those in the playoffs, but we'll see how all that falls. I don't worry about regular season innings as much for the playoffs because let's face it, you have such a quick hook in the playoffs that's not really as relevant as it used to be. It's a great record. It's a great ERA. Here's the problem too. He doesn't qualify for like ERA whip leader because of the innings pitched. So I think because of that, despite the fantastic year he's having, I think he might pick up some votes, but I don't think he's a shot of taking the Cy Young away from Alcantara.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, I'd love to make the homer pick and say absolutely, but I just can't. It's not enough innings, especially against a guy like Alcantara who's got a comparable ERA and probably close to 100 more innings pitched. Yeah, I wish. Joe, any other thoughts for Atlanta?
No, I mean we're down the wire here, and it's a 2-horse race at the top. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. All right, Joe, how about them Cubs?
Yeah, Cubs had an interesting week. They took 1 out of 3 at home against Cincinnati. They took Tuesday's game 9-3. Wednesday's game they lost 7-1, and Thursday they lost 4-3. Of note in that series, Wesneski, the return on the Efros trade, made his debut and looked amazing. Gets the win, 5 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 8 strikeouts. So had a heck of a debut for him. The other thing of note in this series, Aristides Aquino, he went 3 for 4 in the second game, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 2 runs. He has. We talked about Cub killers with the Cardinals last week. 12 of his 38 career home runs are against the Cubs.
Jesus.
The percentage on that is 31.6. So 31.6% of his homers are against the Cubs.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Damn, 31% of his home runs. Dude, he's like Chipper Jones against the freaking Mets.
It's crazy. I don't like I don't like pitching to him. I wish they would stop.
Clearly.
Um, you know, uh, One other note is that Sampson's pitched really well for the Cubs here when he's had opportunities. He's done pretty well. It's the bullpen that's blowing it. Um, and the series against the Reds was more of the same. 6 innings in his game, 5 hits, 1 run, and you still lose a game. So you can't do it. The weekend series they played the Giants. They won on Friday, 4-2. Lost on Saturday, 5-2, and lost last night, Sunday Night Baseball, 4-2. Of note in this series, in Game 1 on Friday, there were 19 strikeouts between the two pitchers. Carlos Rodon, Jed Hoyer, if you're listening, future Cub starter. Rodon went 5 1/3, 3 hits, 2 runs, 11 strikeouts. Smiley went 7 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 8 strikeouts. Rodon had 11 strikeouts and lost the game. I mean,
that's nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely crazy. That was insane.
That's baseball.
Yeah. The other thing too is in Game 2 for the Giants, they had Joey Bart and David VR, two of their minor league guys coming up, getting some innings here, younger guys. They went 5 for 8 on the day between the two of them. Both of them had a home run. Both of them had a double, 2 RBIs. Joey Bart had 1 run, and VR had 2 runs.
Not bad.
So,
here's the thing. When you've got good young prospects and they're getting close, bring them up, and especially now that rosters have expanded for September, bring them up, throw them in the fire, see what you got. It's worked for Atlanta. Seems like it's working for Chicago too. And Joe, I expect to see some Pete Crow Armstrong sometime in the relatively near future too.
I wouldn't expect him until middle of next year at the earliest, I think.
Dude, I can't wait to see him come up. He is so good.
Yeah, it's crazy what he's doing. At the minor league level, it is absolutely nuts.
Plus, I love that you took him away from the Mets, so I have to face him a minimal number of times a year when he does come up, because I think he is going to be an absolute star, and I think he is going to be up for a very long time once he gets here.
Yeah, the best part of about that trade is I got rid of Javi, and his 23. He leads I don't know if it's the entire league in errors. He's got 23. I saw that stat yesterday.
I'll pull that up. That probably is the major league lead, if I had to guess.
So, I mean, I got rid of 23 errors and 150 strikeouts a year. And I've got one of the best outfielders in the game coming up in a year or two.
Remember, that's on a good year. That's all. That's all you give up.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hold on, I'm pulling it up here.
Needless to say, as a Cub fan, I'm excited about the future, and that's kind of all I have to think about at this point. Justin Steele is on the IL. I don't know how quickly he'll come back. Keegan, feels like almost like he's just been shut down, which I don't disagree with that decision at all. It's more innings than he's ever pitched in his entire career in a year. So.
Yeah, I believe Javi leads the entire league with 23 errors. That's Jesus, that's terrible. All right. Anything else about the Cubbies, Joe?
No, that's it for now.
I have one quick thing that actually just happened earlier this evening, right before we came on the air, that I didn't notice before we came on. There's one more guy we need to have on a home run watch right now, and that would be the superstar in Los Angeles, Mike Trout. Earlier today, he homered in his 7th consecutive game, which is one shy of the major league record. He had a 2-run homer off of Cleveland's Connor Pilkington. That's a heck of a last name. In the 5th inning, that's his 35th of the season. And that was a 422-foot shot to dead center Progressive Field. The major league record is shared by Ken Griffey Jr., Don Mattingly, and Dale Long. And that's 8 straight games of the home run. So the next game for the Angels is tomorrow night, again in Cleveland. So good luck to Mike Trout. That would be amazing to see him tie that mark and maybe even beat that mark. He's also the first AL player with a 7-game home run streak since Kendrys Morales of Toronto back in 2018. And we'll remember it did happen last year too. Joey Votto did it in 7 straight as well in late July. If I remember right, actually, at least 1 or 2 of those was against Atlanta too, because of course they were. So good luck to Trout. Hope you hit that next one tomorrow, bud. All right, so Joe, moving on to the Phillies. You want to give the scores, and then I'll give Jason's comments. You're muted still.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, they won Tuesday night 3-2 against the Marlins. Obviously, the first 3 games, 4-3, and the other score was 6-5. Marlins won the last game of that series. So that was the first half of the week for Philly, and then the weekend series they swept the Nationals 5-3 Friday night, 8-5 Saturday, and yesterday was 7-5.
Yeah, so damn good week for the Phillies. Jason said the Phillies this week did what they needed to do. 2-3 from the Fish, swept the Nats. Probably should have swept the week, but Angel Hernandez was Angel Hernandez. Which, going back to the increased base size, can you imagine how horrible Angel would be? Like, he's bad now. Imagine how much worse he would be if home plate was made a little bit bigger. Please, MLB, never change home plate. Because Angel Hernandez will still find a way to call strikes 4.5, 5 inches inside and 4.5, 5 inches outside. Don't ever do that. So they're starting to get healthy again. Stranthony's back. Eflin's going to be reactivated tonight. He's going to go into the pen for the time, which will give his arm a break. They need Wheeler and Castellanos back, and then hopefully get ready for the final push. Just keep doing what they're doing. They'll be okay. Jason's still worried about a collapse, but Nola's been good so far this month. Falter's really stepped up while Wheeler's been out. He's won all 3 of his starts so far. So, yeah, it's I agree with everything Jason said. Definitely a good run so far for the Phillies. They're doing what they need to do against this crappy schedule they've got. This is just ridiculous how bad the quality of teams they're facing until the Braves come into town next. Or actually, I'm sorry, until they go down to Atlanta next. It's ridiculous how bad the teams are that they're playing. But then, they didn't write the schedule. So, they're taking advantage of it, and that's what you have to do. So, good on them. I wish it was otherwise, of course, but it's not. Yeah, Nola in September so far, he's only made, 2 starts? So he hasn't had a decision yet, but he's got a 104 ERA, 8 2/3 innings, 6 hit, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts. So definitely far better than his Septembers have been in the past. We'll have to see if that continues. I'm going to remain skeptical until I see it continue, just because the history is definitely not on his side for that. All right, so moving on to the hot players for the week, Joe. My 4 for this week for hitters, I've got Bo Bichette of Toronto, a 500, 529, 1.156 line, 11 runs scored, 5 homers, 13 RBIs. This might be why Toronto's been so good lately. 16 hits, 4 doubles, a triple, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. I also have Jake McCarthy of Arizona, 458, 519, 667, 6 runs, a homer, 6 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 11 hits, a triple, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Mike Trout, of course, 450, 500, 1.3, 8 runs, 5 home runs, 8 RBIs, 9 hits, 2 doubles, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. And my old favorite, Freddie Freeman, 546, 593, 1046, 7 runs, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 12 hits, 2 doubles, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. And again, that's so Freddie to have more walks than strikeouts in a week. Joe, any other hot hitters to add to the list?
I'm gonna add Aaron Judge to this list, primarily for his line was 429, 552, 619, OPS 1171, 4 runs, 9 hits, uh, a double, a homer, only one homer, which seems like a down week for Aaron Judge, but
Nuts,
hey,
isn't it?
uh, 4 RBIs, 7 walks. So I mean, not only is he hitting the cover off the ball when he gets pitched to, but he's seeing the ball extremely well.
And his pace is down to 63, so that's definitely affecting things. But he's not trying to force pitches that aren't there, and he's smart enough to take the balls that are balls and roll with it. So all the props to Judge on that one.
Yeah. He's missing the protection of one Joey Gallo that would really make a difference there.
Or Giancarlo Stanton, maybe.
Right.
Or Benintendi or Holiday or any of the other long list of guys that are injured. Here's the problem with the Yankees right now that I just noticed earlier today. Their left-handed hitting is gone. They have no left-handed protection in that lineup, and they are back to being a righty-heavy lineup again. And they did, to be fair, this isn't organic. They did try to fix that at the trade deadline, especially with Benintendi, but broken bone in the wrist, he may be done for the year. I don't know if he'll be able to make it back for a playoff run or not. But it does playoffs. You need to have a balanced offense or your right-handed hitters need to be otherworldly, and they have not been that right now. So, that's definitely, I think, going to affect the Yankees moving forward. All right. So Joe, who is your Moneyball hitter of the week?
So I've got two. I've got a runner up here. Well, this is a tough choice. Well, the runner up right here, I'm gonna bag the homerism for a second. My runner up on Moneyball is almost the best shortstop in the entire National League, Nico Horner. 500, 545, 950, OPS of 1495 for the last week. 7 runs, 10 hits, 2 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 2 RBIs, a walk, and 2 steals.
Bad.
Yeah, the guy has solidified himself at whatever position he wants to play, but he was also on the record yesterday saying, "Look, I want to win. So if I need to move because you want to go get, Trey Turner or Correa or whatever, and I have to move, fine." What I'm hearing a lot from some of the Cubs guys is, going for somebody like a Xander Bogaerts who's willing to play third, and then you have Bogaerts and Horner on that side of the infield, which would be pretty fun to watch. And with Morel playing either second or center or wherever, there's a lot to like about that possibility if it happens. Ownership has basically the Ricketts have basically said the ball's in Jed's court, which I hate when they say that because it's like, yeah, okay. A year and a half ago, you said that we were going to be competitive. Now we don't know what that word means as Cub fans. But Nico, I mean, you guys know how I feel about him. I was like, they need to get somebody for sure, and now I don't feel that way. So he has earned his spot there. He has earned the respect of Cubs fans, Cubs ownership. And honestly, he's earned the respect of the league. I mean, his WAR this year for him is it's to 4 now, and he's literally like he's the second best shortstop in the league, in the National League. Between him and Dansby, probably for Gold Glove territory here. So
yeah, absolutely. He's playing really good, and honestly, he is one of my favorite guys on the Cubs to watch. And I am not even slightly surprised to hear that he has been such a team player overall and it would be willing to move to make the team better.
Yeah.
Every team wants 100 guys like that.
Yeah. Um, so enough about my runner-up, I guess. The Moneyball player of the week for me is Eloy Jimenez from the White Sox. 520, 519, 960 slugging, OPS 1479, 6 runs on 13 hits, 2 doubles, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, and a walk. That on top of the pitching they've been getting, which we'll get to in a second. That's the big reason the White Sox are back within striking distance, and we're feeling kind of positive about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Good numbers. All right, so my pitchers for this week, of course, Lance Lynn, absolutely phenomenal. 2-0, 13 innings, 16 strikeouts, an ERA of 0, a WHIP of .62. He allowed 6 hits and 2 walks. Yeah, not bad. Shane Bieber of the Guardians, 2-0, 14 in the third, 14 strikeouts, a 1.26 ERA, a .77 WHIP, 2 earned runs, 9 hits, 2 walks, 1 home run allowed. Brandon Woodruff of the Brewers, 1-0, 13 innings, 16 strikeouts, a 2.08 ERA, a .77 WHIP, 3 earned runs, 7 hits, 3 walks, 1 home run allowed. Corbin Burns of the Brewers, going back on what I said earlier about the starters maybe finally waking up, 1-0, 8 innings, but 14 strikeouts and a 1.13 ERA, .38 WHIP. That's 1 earned run and 3 hits. No walks. And then I also had from the Pirates, Mitch Keller. He made 2 starts, went 1-0, 13 innings, struck out only 8, but he had an ERA of 0 and a WHIP of .92. He allowed 7 hits and walked 5. So, hey, when you're the Pirates and you get a pitcher like that, you roll with that as hard as you can. And I expect him to be trade bait whenever his contract is up in traditional Pirates fashion. Joe, any other starters for you this week?
Yeah. I'm sad Jason's not here for this one. Mr. Garrett Cole from the Yankees, 1-0 this week, 6 2/3, 5 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 14 strikeouts.
Damn.
105 WHIP, 200 batting average against. Again, the Yankees need the pitchers to start pitching because their hitters aren't hitting and the guys are hurt. So getting a performance like that out of Garrett Cole, that's a gut check. That's what you needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe, who's your adulting reliever of the week?
So we've got 2 guys I want to highlight before this. Camilo Duvall from the Giants made 2 appearances. He was 2 for 2 in save opportunities. 2 1/3 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 1 hit batter, and 1 strikeout. The WHIP for him a .86, 2.86 batting average against. And then Liam Hendricks from the White Sox, 2 for 2 in saves, 2 innings, no hits, no runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Why he couldn't do that against the Orioles, I have no idea. But WHIP of 0.5 and nobody got a hit off him, so the zero's there. But my adulting reliever of the week this week, Tim Meza from the Toronto Blue Jays. A 1-0 record, and he was 1-2 in save opportunities, which to me, you won 2 of your 3 appearances with that win and then the save. But the numbers for him: 2 1/3, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 1 strikeout, .43 WHIP, and a 1.25 batting average against. So for the totality of the work, he's my adulting reliever of the week.
All right. Yeah, I can't argue with that. All right, so moving on to hot teams. I have the White Sox, the Guardians, the Rockies, the Astros, the Dodgers, the Brewers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Rays, and the Blue Jays. Even though Atlanta was over 500, I could not force myself to put them on the list after they dropped 2 or 3 to the Mariners, the only team of any substance they played this week. Taking the homerism right out of that one before it can even start. Joe, anybody else you want to toss in the list for the week?
I hadn't noticed that the Rockies had played well, so that was in addition. I didn't keep track too closely, obviously.
Nobody ever does when they play well. Let's face it.
No, St. Louis continues to just be hotter than fire, and basically ran away with this division. It feels like back in July. Um, I don't know if it feels that way to you, but me as an NL Central guy, it feels like this division's been over for a long, long time.
Yeah, I kept waiting for the Brewers to try and turn it around, and they just never did. And it's we're at the point of it's too little, too late. This Cardinals team is not going to collapse. They're not built like that. They're too good of a team to collapse. So, Brew Crew, your best hope is to catch San Diego and hope they have a little bit of a falling out in the wild card race. All right, looking at the week ahead, Atlanta has a week that they really need to play quite well. They're at the Giants. That game started 3 minutes ago, so it's still 0-0. Tonight is Strider versus Cobb. Tomorrow is Wright versus Junis, and then we have Morton versus Rodon on Wednesday. They finally have a day off, and then host the Phillies down in Truist. Fried versus Suarez, Odorizzi versus Nola. I am not liking that at all. Odorizzi has not impressed me since coming to Atlanta. But then we've got Strider versus Falter, and that's going to be a fantastic matchup on Sunday. I didn't happen to see if that was the Sunday night matchup or not. God, I hope not, because I hate listening to A-Rod, but it is what it is. So the Braves need to take care of business against the Giants, and it would be very helpful if they could take 2 out of 3 from the Phillies as well. The Phillies, their early week match is against the Marlins down in Miami, though. Falter versus Alcantara, Gibson versus Cabrera, Syndergaard versus Lopez. So, the Marlins, they're known to be Phillies killers. Typically, will it happen? Will it not? If it's going to happen, I feel like it's more likely to happen in Miami than in Philadelphia. So, if that's going to happen, now's got to be the time. Although this year, Jason should be happy to note the Phillies are 10-6 against the Marlins. So the Marlins curse has really not been biting at the Phillies this year like it has in years past. The Cubbies this week, they're playing the Mets right now. It's Assad versus Bassett tonight. As I mentioned, Bassett got wrecked by the Cubbies offense. So tomorrow is Sampson versus DeGrom. Good luck with that. And then Smiley versus Peterson. And then you guys host the Rockies, Stroman versus Marquez, Miley versus Urania, and Assad versus Feltner. So, Joe, I hope you take 2 out of 3 or sweep the Mets. I don't think a sweep's going to happen with DeGrom in the series as much as I might wish. How do you think the Cubs are going to match up against the Rockies?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think, Stroh didn't pitch well when they were in Colorado at the beginning of the year. So hopefully, playing at home is better for him. And he's been really solid the last 2 months of the year as a starter for them. Miley's been good the last few starts he's made here finally again. Makes me wonder what the Reds knew last year. Last year when we talked about Miley, it looked like the Cubs had fleeced another team, and it turns out Miley just couldn't stay healthy this year. So I'm looking forward to Smiley on Wednesday night. I'm pulling for him, man. If they want to take that option, I have no problem with it at this point, based on how he's performed.
Yeah, if I'm the Cubs, I take that option. No questions asked. He's definitely pitched well enough to have earned a second year.
I mean, here's wishing on a rotation for the Cubs for you. You have Marcus Stroman, who's got 2 more years on his deal. You got Keegan Thompson. You've got Justin Steele. You've got Drew Smiley and Carlos Rodon. All I get now.
And potentially the professor if he is good to come
and the
back.
Professor. But I mean, that combination, I feel pretty good about it. Hopefully, I mean, obviously, I felt good about this year, and that didn't work out so well. But yeah, I mean, as far as the Rockies go, can the Cubs continue to hit it home? Home is fun to play in, obviously, and KB will be back in town, so we'll see, what kind of tributes flow into that game. Obviously, they had a chance to do that last year when the Giants played in Wrigley. So I don't know if they'll do anything extra, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of reception he gets from the fans.
I'm sure the reception from the fans will be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no reason why it wouldn't be. Joe, any other series you're watching this week?
Yeah. Rays and Jays here at the beginning of the week. Um, you know, to see if that picture gets any clearer. The Orioles have the Nationals at the beginning of the week here, so for the O's, if they're going to make a move, this is the time to do it. Especially because you've got another weekend series with the Blue Jays this weekend. So that's who I'm going to keep an eye on what the Orioles do this week. Brewers and St. Louis at the beginning of the week. Again, Brewers, this is your chance. You got to make your move now. I don't expect them to do it, and the chase for 700 obviously will be high on the radar there.
Oh, absolutely.
And Yankees Brewers here at the end of the week too.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm really only watching Braves Mets right now. The Mets, after the Cubbies host the Pirates for a 4-game series, and then have to do a quick transition out to Milwaukee for the Brewers for 3 next week before a day off, and then 3 out west in Oakland before they have a day off and come back to Miami or home from Miami. Their travel sucks for this month. Mets fans have been complaining about that. Yeah, you guys got shafted that you have that run of home games, then directly to Milwaukee, a day off, all the way out to Oakland, and then come back home for 2, go back on the road again, because then they'll be down in Atlanta. They have a right to complain about that 100%. That's the schedulers were quite stupid when they put that together. All right, guys. You can find all the audio recordings on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. You can see us live on our YouTube channel, on Facebook Live, and on Twitter. You can find our merchandise at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer, on the Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. You can find all of us on Twitter. I'm at PyroLord314. Jason is at JRicker300, and Joe's at JoltonJoe35. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast, LLC, and we are sponsored by Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. May your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a good one, everybody.